What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Forward Progress Week 16, Best Bets Edition, live here on the Forward Progress YouTube channel, part of the Hammer Betting Network, and presented by FanDuel. I am Rob Pizzola, joined once again by the regular team of Judah, Hitman, Sommer back with us after his mysterious expeditions in Germany last week. We don't really ask him what's going on in his, side hustle, whatever's happening. Folks, we finally did it last week. Finally, a winning week, 3-1. Austin Mock filled in for Sommer. This felt like a throwback to last year with you-know-who dragging us down in the loss column. Hitman leading this year, barely above water, but ruined the perfect week last week. We'll take the winning week, though. I will say, Hitman, what a cucking that was on the Washington Commanders. Like, the ref couldn't even figure out the clock last week.
It only took two missed long deep throws, missed non-pass interference, the shaky holding call. Took a lot to take me down. So the refs better bring it this week.
Yeah, that was a tough one. I actually bet that myself. So I definitely shared profanity-laced tirades at the screen over the course of the end of that game. It is what it is. We move on. We're this close to hitting 8K subscribers here on YouTube. So if you enjoy the show, make sure you hit that like button, but more importantly, subscribe here, share it out with your friends. Let's see if we can hit that milestone going into the holiday season. It'd be very much appreciated if you can bump us up to 8K subs. This week, we're diving into a bunch of games, including the Saturday games. Again, if we have an opinion on it, we will talk about it. If we don't, we will avoid it. Looking at the sheet going into the show today, doesn't look like we're going to talk Lions, Bears. Doesn't look like we're going to talk Colts, Titans. Doesn't look like we're going to talk Monday Night Football or Raiders, Jags. The rest of the games are definitely available to us on board right now. And of course, whether you're tailing, you're fading, you're just here for entertainment, we're going to try to inform you as best as possible, maybe even cash a few tickets again this week. Week 16 is here. Let's get into it. Let us start with first game on Saturday, which is the Houston Texans visiting Arrowhead to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, complete reversal in the market here from where we opened up. I talked about this with Clive on Sunday night and the possibility that Mahomes might actually play in this game to grab that early KC number. I know Hitman did that earlier in the week as well. And we're now at a complete flip here at FanDuel with Kansas City -3, -106 total in the game at 41.5. Judah, I'm going to go to you here first. Chiefs and Texans, break it down for us. What do you see in this matchup?
Yeah, I think there are almost kind of two ways I think about the Chiefs. There's like current mode of Chiefs of like where we sit in week 16 of the NFL season. And there's like a separate view of like the Chiefs kind of come playoff time and all of that. And right now we've got a defense which had like its first good game in the rain against the Jameis Winston and the Browns, and has been a disaster since Jalen Watson went down, and against anyone who basically has wide receiver twos who can beat their secondary corners. Trent McDuffie's been great for them. The pass defense is a problem, and I also think that the Chiefs' offense, which again I'm not making the case of like what they will be come playoff time, but what they are right now. Their reputation, I think, holds as like, oh, this is a Chiefs team that's winning in a different way with an extremely high success rate. And their run game has been great. And Mahomes has been bailing them out on third downs. That has not been the Chiefs offense of the last 2 months. They're like 10th best in success rate, not first. And kind of coinciding with that is Patrick Mahomes' sack avoidance went from like greatest of all time to slightly below league average. His pressure to sack rate is like 19th best in the NFL right now. And that's certainly not going to improve with an ankle injury. Again, different case for what Mahomes is like in the playoffs versus what he is now. And this is a Texans defense, which has been great. They've also gotten a lot healthier. Their edges in particular were dealing with some injuries, and they have been top 5 in basically any counts against both the run and the pass. And I don't think this is a Chiefs team which is going to have a ton of success moving the football. And I think the Texans, yes, they have underperformed. I still think this is a very attackable Chiefs team. And from a market value perspective on both the offense and defense, it's a spot where I'd leave the Texans.
All right, Judah, open it up with the Texans on Saturday. Hitman, you had some thoughts on this game as well.
Yeah. Obviously, I think it looks likely Mahomes is probably going to play. I think that the value that you spoke about earlier with Kansas City is obviously probably gone. But I love taking advantage of some of these games in the live markets that have a lot of uncertainty surrounding them. Like one example I'll give for like a live market is we could have a Mahomes rushing prop, for example. I'm sure that it's going to be deflated. You might be able to tell within a drive or two if that number is just completely wrong, whether it be the first drive, he's moving great. Maybe Andy Reid calls a sprint right option or something, and you see, well, you know, he's really mobile. I think that the over on a deflated number could be worth a look. Or maybe you could just tell within a drive or two, he can't move at all. And even at a reduced number, the under has value. Same applies to the spread. Like, obviously, like Mahomes could come out and look like how he looked in the second half against the Eagles in the Super Bowl, where he got hurt at the end of the first half. We thought he might be done for the game, and he looked completely fine. Or he could look severely hobbled, and betting against Kansas City live is a good idea. Just remember, like a lot of the books are pricing their live odds based off an algorithm, based off what the closing line in the game was. And in these instances where there is a lot of uncertainty, the closing line isn't always 100% efficient, and you can learn a lot more in 10 minutes of watching the game than you could have the whole week leading up to the game. So, yeah, anytime I get any of these situations, just want to say that the live market is definitely a good opportunity to try to make some money.
Yeah, really like that advice there. Obviously, you're looking for stuff that was not priced in accurately. There's a certain degree of variance in this type of game based off of Mahomes' ankle and how it holds up here. So I think that makes a lot of sense, Hitman. The later game on Saturday is an AFC North matchup, one that has consistently produced close games over the past, I'll say several years at this point. It's the Ravens hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, some injury news to talk about in this game with George Pickens and TJ Watt, both banged up on the Steelers side. Obviously, impactful players that would have an impact on the spread, whether they played or not. There's some other minor injuries to the Steelers, Larry Ogunjobi, Dante Jackson as well, one of their starting corners, Deshaun Elliott at safety. Current market right now, up to 6.5 minus 105 at FanDuel. There's still some expensive sixes in market as well. Total in the game, 45.5. Suma, let's get your thoughts on this one. Ravens and Steelers. A lot of people buy into the Steelers when they're these big underdogs, right? The Tomlin voodoo type of factor, historically a great spot. Do you see this being a great spot for the Steelers this week?
Not really. I lean towards the Ravens. I saw a practice video just recently that George Pickens was at practice. He was also at practice yesterday, so I couldn't figure out whether it was really him participating in these early media team drills or just doing individual work again. Yesterday, he was DNP. On Saturday, he would be, I think, 16 days removed from what they call a grade 2 hamstring injury. So I think right now it's probably 50-50 at best. Might change within an hour when injury reports come out. Not sure. I think without George Pickens, this Steelers offense is just severely limited. Last couple of weeks, they always try to run the ball. They cannot run the ball at all. It's basically just Russell Wilson doing moonballs down the sideline to George Pickens, who was out, or like dumping off to his running backs and tight ends again, like he did in that Bengals game for a very decent production. And without George Pickens, this was really completely handcuffed, this offense. The Ravens are a top 3 rushing defense, so I don't really see the Steelers doing anything on the ground. So it will come down to, can Russell Wilson make enough plays in obvious passing situations? Maybe with George Pickens, maybe not. If Pickens is out, I would like the Ravens even more. But I just don't really see how the Steelers continue to be that efficient on offense when it's pretty much just variance on Russell Wilson hitting these deep sideline throws. And on the other side, I expect TJ Watt to play Deshaun Elliott was also at practice today, I think. So probably both guys returning to the starting lineup. DJ Watt was in the starting lineup, but he left the game. And I think the Steelers defense in general is a little bit overrated. Since week 8, they ranked 26th in rushing success rate, 12th against the pass. So this is not like that top 10 unit that some people might have in mind. And the Ravens offense is still pretty amazing. I think they will be able to run the ball this time. And I just don't see the Steelers consistently getting stops against them. All that being said, I'm closer to 7 here. Depends a little bit on the George Pickens status. Without him, I would like the Ravens a little bit more, but leaning towards the Ravens here.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one, Suma. I found something really interesting in the True Media notes this morning as well. But if you look at the last 5 weeks, the Steelers have really emphasized running the ball a lot more. Now, obviously, some of that was the Pickens injury last week, but 3 of the last 5 games have been close games for them. It was the Ravens game. There was the Browns game on Thursday Night Football last week against the Eagles, where there was a lot of neutral game state running. They have the 5th most carries in the entire league over the last 5 weeks, but they're 29th in EPA per rush. And this is what I was worried about going into the year with an Arthur Smith type of offense, was being heavily reliant on the run and not having that type of success. That's kind of happening with the Steelers at the current moment. And this is a Ravens defense that you really can't run on with that much success either. So I don't love the matchup for Pittsburgh. This is very dependent on whether or not Pickens plays for me. And obviously the market will react to that as well. So you're going to have to be quick. You're going to have notifications on, stuff of that nature. But I do strongly lean to Baltimore as well in this game. All right, we're going to get to the Sunday games in just a moment here. Before we do, I'll remind you, make sure you bet the NFL season on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. I'm a big product guy. I have a passion for good products in the space. I think FanDuel right now has the best product in the space overall. Great markets all around, tons of them, easy app to use, easy website to use, great in-game product as well. And right now, all customers get a profit boost every single NFL game day. That means you can pump up your gridiron winnings multiple times a week. Thursday, tomorrow, we got a live profit boost token and a To Catch a Pass profit boost token available to you for Thursday Night Football, Denver Broncos, and Los Angeles Chargers. FanDuel has tons of ways you can get in on the action. You can bet money line spreads, player props, and more. Plus, with super simple live betting, lightning fast bet settlement, and instant withdrawals, FanDuel makes betting on the NFL easier than ever before. Just visit FanDuel.com/forward-progress to download FanDuel today. Must be 21 plus and present in select states, or 18 plus and present in DC. Opt-in required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including token expiration. See terms for offers at sportsbook.fanduel.com. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, 1-877-8-HOPE-NY, or text HOPE-NY in New York. Okay, let's move it along here to the Sunday slate. We're starting in the same division, AFC North. Browns and Bengals. First game we're going to talk about for the Sunday slate. Obviously, the big news here, Jameis Winston on the bench in this game. DTR going to start. Pretty bad EPA numbers last week. There's some injuries on the Cincinnati side to watch as well. Defensively, Sam Hubbard's out. Sheldon Rankins has been injured. The offensive line in limbo as well for the Bengals. As it stands right now, market sitting at 7.5. Total in the game has been bet down to 47 in most spots, even down to 46.5 at FanDuel. But you want to talk about the side here, Judah. Platform is yours. Bengals and Browns. What do you like in here?
Yeah, I like the side. I guess it also kind of works for the total, but I think I prefer this side here. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, at least in my database, which goes back to 2019, we've had 148 quarterbacks have 100 dropbacks. Only Ryan Finley has a worse EPA than DTR. And I think that certainly if you look at the team total, the market is expecting, maybe this is an argument for the Browns team total under as well, is expecting this team to score like 19, 20 points. And I think a lot of that has to do with how poor Cincinnati's defense has been. I'm just not sure that the Browns offense is good enough to take advantage of that. I think this is also, even in the sample of games that we do have, and Granted, it is small. GTR at least had some semblance of like a running game. The weapons are probably as bad as they've ever been. The offensive line certainly in kind of the worst state. They've got really nothing going on offense, and I'm not sure they're going to be able to take advantage. And on the flip side, this Browns defense has been atrocious. And certainly since they traded Zadarius Smith, they were at least generating a lot of pressure. And obviously, Myles Garrett can always take over any game. But this is a team that was like top 5 in quick pressure rate through the first couple of months of the season, and since then has been like bottom 6 since trading away Smith. This is a defense that's allowing a ton of explosive plays. They're bottom in every pass defense metric you can count of. I just see this as a fairly low variance spot for the Bengals to be able to score. They've been moving the ball at will. And I just don't think that Dorian Thompson-Robinson is going to be able to keep up on the other side. Some weird stuff can happen in garbage time that I prefer attacking this via the spread. So I do think there are cases to be made for the under, both on the Browns team total and the game total. But I think the best way of attacking this is on the spread and trying to be a little bit less reliant on whatever happens late in the fourth quarter after the game's decided.
All right, Judah making a case for the Bengals in that one. We'll shift gears here to the NFC. Teams coming off of pretty differing performances last week. Panthers came down to earth, got blown out by the Cowboys at home, whereas Arizona got back on track, beating down the New England Patriots. Early money in this matchup has been towards the Arizona Cardinals, drifting out to -4.5 on the road here. Total, depending on where you're betting it at, could be 47 or 46.5. Juice pretty heavily to the over in this game. Suma, out to you here first. Cardinals and Panthers. Are you buying what the Cardinals have brought to the table in the last week?
Yes and no. Yes, because I think we know what this offense is. And no, because I think last week was a little bit schedule dependent. I think that they need a specific matchup to really play well on offense, and the Pats defense provided such a matchup. But I also think this week this will be another game where the Cardinals offense might have a very easy way of moving the ball. Carolina, they've been bad on defense all season long. They also had a lot of injuries on top of the talent issues, but since week 8, they are allowing a 51% success rate on the ground and 0.1 EPA per play. This is like, those are absurd numbers. And the Cardinals, it's not like a perfect correlation, but I feel like when you watch their games all the time, when they can get their run game going early, the whole offense feels like a lot more fluid. They don't have a strong downfield passing game, so they wanna use all their run concepts and try to hit guys underneath. And I feel like when they are in a rhythm, they can increase their offensive production and efficiency. And I think this is the kind of matchup where the Cardinals offense should look very strong again. And I've been low on the Panthers basically all season long. And I mean, Bryce Young, there was some hype. I think that him playing like average quarterback for a few weeks was absolutely amazing to see. And I want him to succeed. But I think this offense, the offensive line is still pretty solid. But I think overall, this is still an offense that lacks a lot of talent. And the Cardinals defense is not great. They are somewhere below average, but I think that their style of defense can create havoc on obvious passing downs. And I think considering the game script that I expect based on the offensive matchup for the Cardinals, I think that their defense should have a decent game script. And then at some point, I think the Panthers passing game, drop back game will reach its limit. So I like the Cardinals at -4.5 at FanDuel.
I agree with a lot of what you said about the Cardinals offense. And listen, I'll be the first to admit I got pretty lucky with my best bet last week on the Arizona New England over, because there's a lot of garbage time scores in that game. And New England's they've been doing that this season under Drake May. They really push the ball down the field when they're trailing. He'll take some chances. but a lot of the handicap was predicated on Arizona being able to run the ball and having success doing that, and the whole entire offense looks better. I will say Christian Gonzalez played really well, and Marvin Harrison Jr. I think Arizona could have put up many more points in that game if they could have got any separation out of that position. But this is a secondary that they can attack. They'll be able to run the ball. I like Arizona to score. The big thing for Carolina last week, I'm a Cowboys fan, watched the game in full. Ike Ekwonu, the left tackle for Carolina, just did not hold up in that game. Micah Parsons absolutely torched him. 16.2 pressure rate allowed by Ike Ekwonu in that game. That would have been the worst in the league last week if Joe Thuney wasn't playing left guard for the Kansas City Chiefs as well. This is a Cowboys team that gets a lot of pressure, an Arizona team that doesn't. I do think he'll have a cleaner pocket. I do think they'll be able to run the ball a little bit more successfully. I'm going back to the over for a second straight week here on the Arizona Cardinals. I think this is a really good matchup that is conducive to points. Okay, back to the AFC. We're in the AFC East. It's the New England Patriots, aforementioned, coming off a blowout loss last week, taking on the Buffalo Bills, who just seem to be steamrolling everyone right now. This is expected to be a very cold game, but not impacted by snow or rain or anything like that. But we're looking at temperatures below 20 Fahrenheit. For the Canadians watching, that'd be roughly -8 Celsius for this game. Market is pretty much painted 14 for the most part in this game, 46.5 the total. Hitman, I'll start with you here because you actually have a couple of different opinions on this game.
Yeah, I have a slight lean towards New England and the over. A lot of that is based off monitoring the Bills' injuries to their secondary. Cornerback Rasul Douglas, both starting safeties, Taylor Rapp and DeMar Hamlin. I'm not going to have a ton of stats to back up a 14-point underdog, but Drake May has looked pretty serviceable against two opponents the last 2 weeks in Arizona and Indy, who are very zone-heavy based, just like Buffalo has. May threw for 45 for 53, 440 passing yards in those two games. I kind of liked that Gerard Mayo basically proclaimed to the media that he wants Drake May to run more. I think that we can probably all agree that design runs with Drake May would probably benefit the Patriots offense in the short term. It's really just the long term is what you worry about with him potentially holding up and not getting injured. And with Buffalo, like, I kind of like the over a little bit more the more I talk about, just because Buffalo has scored 30 or more points in 8 straight games. New England's defense is not good. It's probably going to be a tough task to hold them under that number. The real question is, do we get New England to the amount of points needed for a backdoor cover or an over? And as you mentioned, Rob, New England and Drake May has been pretty good and pretty aggressive in some of these late game backdoor situations. So, yeah, slight lean towards New England, slight lean towards the over, but I'm really monitoring the Bills injury report before I do anything with this game.
Yeah, this is another one that I was live on air with Clive on Sunday night when the total in this game opened at 44.5, which I thought was a pretty clear mistake. I actually still think there's value on the over here. And yes, it's a cold game and temperatures might impact scoring a little bit at this rate, but Buffalo should have their way with this New England D. And yes, they might run the ball a little bit more heavily in this type of game. Well, the Patriots can't stop the run altogether. The Patriots also blitz at the 3rd highest rate in the NFL, especially in very obvious passing situations. Josh Allen, 0.36 EPA per dropback against the blitz this year. That's only behind Lamar Jackson. He has the most touchdowns against the blitz in the entire league. On top of that, the Bills are killing man coverage, which the Patriots play a lot of. You look at since week 11, the Bills have a 14.5% explosive play percentage against man coverage, highest EPA per dropback against man in the league at 0.78, which is absurdly high. So I do think the Bills are going to score a lot in this game. And I like New England a lot in trailing game states. I've talked about it many times before, but they have some advantages in the running game, even when the game is in neutral script. We have all these injuries on the Buffalo defense to keep an eye on. Matt Milano, Dorian Williams, Rasul Douglas, DeMar Hamlin, Taylor Happ. It's not a healthy defense by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm with Hitman on this one. I think the over is worth a look at 47 or lower. Okay, moving along to the NFC East. Philadelphia Eagles and Washington Commanders. The dynamic of this game has changed a little bit since over the course of the last half hour or so, right before we went on air. That's because the Philadelphia Eagles got steamed across the market, up to -3.5. Total in the game sitting at 45.5. I haven't seen an update on A.J. Brown. There's been a lot of conflicting reports there as to whether he actually is dealing with a high ankle sprain or not. We'll know more as the week goes on. We actually have some conflicting opinions on this game as well. Judah, I'm going to start with you here first. You want to make a case for the Commanders at home.
Yeah, I think this mainly rests on, I guess it's really one kind of data point, which is really to me a set of data points, which is that Jaden Daniels, the first pre-rib injury, I'll say, was scrambling. And by scrambling, I don't mean times in which he crossed the line of scrimmage, but any time he broke the pocket to begin the process of scrambling. So that could be a pass, a run, or a sack. He was doing that about 25% of the time before his rib injury, and was very successful. He was adding 0.2 EPA per play on those plays. And then post rib injury, he was scrambling about 12 to 15% of the time, basically. And in the last 4 weeks before this past one was at 7%, 9% scramble rate. And when he did scramble, he was not doing so as effectively and was losing a bunch of expected points. And then last week he got back to, again, post-bye, got back to the scramble rates of the early season Jaden Daniels. I think that's relevant for I guess multiple dimensions. One is that he's, I think, a lot better of a player when he's scrambling. And I think the question of how do we evaluate Washington in a market context of a team that started out extremely hot, cooled down a bit, and that obviously coincided with Jaden Daniels' injury. And there are certainly confounding factors. We've also got Cliff Kingsbury's kind of natural decline over the course of a season. That's been historically true. A lot of these things are confounding and makes it a more difficult and more variant game to price. And I think that Daniels is a different quarterback. I think it also matters because these are exactly the sorts of traits, the ability to scramble, the ability to extend plays, which can help to mitigate defensive advantages. I think kind of a play to crystallize this idea is one of the touchdowns that Terry McLaurin caught, where Jaden Daniels is just creating in the pocket for 2.5 seconds before he eventually finds it. Your defense is going to break down at some point. This is something I've studied in the past. And the market is obviously giving credit to the Eagles for a terrific defense that they've been. And I think that is completely reasonable. But if Daniels is the quarterback that we saw earlier in the season, who is healthy again and scrambling a lot more effectively, I think this is an appealing spot. There's a lot of injury concerns as we addressed on the Philly side. I guess just very quickly on that side. Yes, they've won, 10, 11 games in a row now. They've been incredible. Obviously, it is still a fragile method of winning. I think it's just if the other team's going to be putting up more points, relying on your defense and your ground game, it absolutely can work. But it's not the same as kind of relying on Josh Allen to play well every week. A lot more things need to go right for the Eagles to play that style of offense. It's naturally fragile. This is a spot where I'm definitely going to be looking to the Washington alts more so than I think the regular spread, but perhaps there is some value too, even just accounting for Jaden Daniels and where I think he's going to his play style and how I think that's going to influence the Washington offense as a whole, and especially so in this matchup.
Suma and Hitman, I want to get your thoughts on this. So I'll start with you, Suma, because obviously we had talked about this right before the show. Eagles are taking money. I don't want to assume anything, actually. I'll hand it over to you. Eagles now out to 3.5. You liked Philadelphia. Do you still see value in betting them at 3.5?
Just very slightly, full disclaimer, I liked it at the juiced -3 way more than at minus 3.5. So let me just quickly talk about the matchup. I think this is still a very good matchup for the Eagles, even though I agree with Judah on the general Eagles outlook going into the playoffs. I don't want to anchor too much on the first game, but I rewatched it this morning, and I think we can still draw a few conclusions from the first matchup. That game was 26-10 Philly with 4:38 to go in the fourth quarter, and the Eagles missed 2 very manageable field goals sub 50 yards. I think Jaden Daniels' biggest issue this season has been that he struggles to buy space in condensed pockets. So it's like first or maybe second read, and if nothing's open, he scrambles, which he does very well. I don't want to take away anything from him there, but I think if defenses are able to maybe contain him in the pockets and close some of those scrambling lines, I think that offense becomes very limited quickly. And the Eagles are a defense that is equipped to do that. They also, I think, in the first matchup, they held him to 7 carries for 18 yards or something. So they did a decent job there. I mean, Eckler had 8 catches. Zach Ertz had 6 catches because they were dumping the ball off all the time. Both guys will likely not play this game. Ertz with a concussion. Quinn Mitchell completely erased Terry McLaurin in that game. 1 catch for 10 yards. Fantasy points tracked a 0% route win percentage in that matchup for Terry McLaurin in that game. And on the other side, I think that Washington's defense has no business winning the line of scrimmage against the Eagles. They lost the line of scrimmage for decent chunks last week against the Saints. And the Eagles is a completely different ballpark. I think Jane Daniels ate like 8 sacks last week against the Saints. So I think Eagles will be very strong on both sides of the line of scrimmage. I think this could be a great Barclay game. I think this could be a great game script for the Eagles where Jaden Daniels might be forced to go more into these obvious passing situations. At 3.5, the edge is decreasing a lot. Still a small lean towards the Eagles, but the market move didn't come into my favor here.
Yeah. Hitman, same question for you. 3.5 now. What do we do with this game?
At the FanDuel price, minus 104, a little bit more appealing. There's a lot of minus 110 out there. So if you do like the Eagles, bet it at FanDuel right now, or see what happens with the market. If the threes do pop back up, I was definitely monitoring the Eagles' injuries